Okay, so what's up? So we're back, and today we're gonna do the door example here, and I've got a different way of doing mine. So I'm gonna just show you how I would do this because I see a lot of people making doors or simple things just to show how to interact with things and have stuff happen, just basic coding. But the tutorials that I have seen for this, they don't include everything that I would include with it because there's more to just opening a door. Like if you want a door to shut, if you're dealing with overlaps, what happens if the overlap isn't picking you up? So I want to go into some of that stuff. So I'm going to make my own version of how to open a door, and we're going to have a door that's opening and closing. When you're dealing with overlaps, there is a couple problems that can come up, and I want to cover all that in this video. So we're going to make a door, and we're going to make a blueprint of an actor, call this door BP, and then we're in door BP now. So I'm going to add a few static meshes in here. So I was just kind of browsing around the starter pack stuff. They have some wall pieces and door and stuff like that. So if you want to get a certain static mesh in your project into a blueprint easy, what you can do is when you're in your blueprint, you can press Control Spacebar, which will bring up the small content drawer here. You can click on what you want. So I'm going into starter content, architecture, and I'm just going to pick this wall. And when I pick that wall, when I come up here to add, it's already there for static mesh. So when I add this, it will add the wall to my blueprint. I'm going to do what I just did. We're going to go back in, but now I'm going to go to, I think it was under props, and I want to add the door frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my wall is selected, and we're going to add the door frame now. And everything's coming in different orientations, but that's fine. So now that my door frame's selected, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to get the door in here. And the door isn't even positioned properly there either. So now we get to set some stuff up here. So the way that I did this, everything's parented to this wall. So if I move the wall around, everything is going to move with it. I'm just going to move the wall so that my blueprint is in the center of the door. And this is just a personal preference, but just so it's more centered, that's what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to click the door frame, and first thing I want to do is rotate this. So I'm going to rotate that 90, and we'll just move that into place here. Okay, so right there, we should have our door frame that's situated in our wall. Nice. Okay, now our door is off. So let's click our door and move our door into place here. So there we go. And hopefully that's centered, and that looks good. So now we have a wall with our door frame and our door. So now at this point, if we were to move the wall around, everything with it is going to move and stay there. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that to bring it back. I want to add a collision. I'm going to add it to the wall. We'll just parent it to the wall. So what I'm going to do is just add a box collision. Okay, and it throws it like over there. So again, I just want to kind of center this. Just put it like somewhere around here, just close to center. Going to lift it up a little bit, and I'm just going to scale this a little bit because I want this to be able to pick the player up. And we're going to scale it like something like this. And then just make it a little bit wider here. Okay, so if our player is inside of this square, the door is going to open. If we leave that square, the door is going to close. Okay, so that looks good. What I'm going to do, just so we can see it too, is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn off hidden from game. That way we can see our collision box that we made. Once we're done, we can shut that off and make it look good. And then we're going to go to the event graph. For right now, I'm going to get rid of everything in here. So let's see, what do we want to do? We want that box collision to pick up our player when we come up to it. Okay, so we're going to need an overlap event. So if we right click on the collision box, add event, add an overlap event. Okay, first thing, let's make sure that that's going to pick us up. So I'm going to do a print, and we're printing from inside of our door. So if our player overlaps this box, if we get picked up, it's going to print. So let's throw this door into the level and see if we get the print. Okay, so we got the door in the level here. So now if I click play and go in, we enter and it prints hello at the top. So it's picking me up when I come in here. So that's good. Let's go back now because we don't want it to print. We want the door to open. So what I'm going to do is make two custom events. I'm going to call one door open, and we're just going to name this one door closed. Okay, we're also going to want an end overlap. So if we go to that box collision, add event, we're going to, on component, end overlap. We're going to need one of these too. I'm in my door blueprint here. Now, let's say I only want the player to overlap this door. I want to just show a nice easy way that we can do that. We can do that with a tag. So what I want to do is just go to my first person character, click on the BP first person in the hierarchy list here in the component, and I'm just going to search in the details panel for tag. And then you see all these different options that come up. These are all component tags here. So I can tag my mesh, character movement, capsule component. What I want to do is just look for the actor. So this will just be the general actor, this blueprint. So I'm going to add a tag there, and I'm just going to call it player. And then I'm going to compile my blueprint, save it, go back to the door. So what I want to do is come off the other actor. So this is going to be whatever, so I'm in the door blueprint now. So whatever other actor we overlap with, I want to check and see if this is the player. So I'm just going to drag off other actor and say as tag, and I'm going to type in that tag we just made, player. And then I'm going to drag off and do a branch. So there will be times when you want to do this. So it's good just to know how to do it here. You might want only your player to be able to open this door. Maybe you want your enemies to be able to walk by and interact with the door and have it open. That's up to you. If you don't want to do the tag, you don't have to do this. Whatever actor overlaps this has the tag of player. And then if they do, I'm going to come out and we're going to call door open. So I'm going to drag off here and call my door open. And then what we're doing is just off of end overlap, I'm just going to call my door closed. Okay, so just very simple one there. So all we're doing is on overlap, check in, see if it has a tag of player, calling door open. Then when we end the overlap, we're calling door closed. How are we going to open the door? Well, we're going to open it with a timeline. I'm going to add timeline in here. And we can name that or not name it. Doesn't really matter. So this timeline is going to animate a value for us. So what we want to change is we want to set the relative rotation of the door. So I'm going to grab the door from the component list. We're going to pull that out. I'm going to drag off the door and we want to set relative rotation. And we want to connect that up to the update. Okay, we have an update and a finish. So this timeline, we're going to tell it how long we want it to work for, or the starting and the end value is going to be. And then it's going to spit that value out, and then we can use that to open the door and close the door. So one thing I want to check real quick, I'm just going to compile and save. I'm going to go to viewport. We have our door right there. So I'm just going to go into rotate. And you can see right here that the rotation on the door is currently set to 0, 0, 0. And then if I rotate it, it's going up to 60, 89.9, 79.9. You can see what the rotation is there as we open it. Okay, so the rotation's starting at 0 here. And then as we open the door, let's just say we're going to go to like 90 degrees maybe, right? So I'm going to put that door back to 0. Go back to the event graph, and we're going to go in the timeline here. If you've never done anything with a timeline, this could be a little confusing, but I'm just going to show you the basics of them and how simple just the basics are. So we have one thing right here, the length. This is going to be how long we want the animation for. I'm just going to say 2 seconds. So now I'm going to hit the track button and we're going to add a float track because I'm going to get a float value out of this. So I added the track. You can name it if you want. You can have multiple tracks in here doing different things. So if you want to name your tracks, you can name them, but I'm not going to bother naming it. I'm just going to right click and add a key. Okay, so we now have this blue key here. The easiest way to describe what this is doing is we're going from a time of 0 to a time of 2 seconds, and we're going to change a value over that time. So this is going to be where I'm starting. So I want to start at a time of 0 and a value of 0. Because this animation is 2 seconds, I want my first key to be at time 0, and then my last key is going to be at the time 2 seconds. And then the value that we're going to be changing over this time, I'm starting that at 0 because, again, the rotation of this door is currently set to 0. So we're going to be rotating the yaw axis of it. So you can see this value right here, that blue one, is what we change when we open the door up. So that's going to be the yaw axis of the door. So the door is starting at a value of 0. So I'm going to right click and add another key. And then I'm going to go in and change the time to whatever the length is that I set up here, which will be 2 seconds. And you can see it puts that key at the end of the timeline. Now for a value, I'm just going to say 90. Okay, now that key disappears. So you can use these little zoom to fit horizontally and vertically. You can click both of those, and now you can see both of your keyframes. So if you want to check it, you can go back and check your first one and see time 0, value 0. Check your last key, time 2, value 90. So all we're doing is just taking, over the course of 2 seconds, we're going to be increasing this value from 0 to 90. Okay, so I'm going to save, compile, go back to the event graph, and now as you can see, we have this pin here that we didn't have before. This is the new track 0 that we made. Or if you renamed it, this will say whatever you named your track to be. So this is going to be the value that's going to change from 0 to 90 over the course of 2 seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this rotation, right click, and we're going to split the structure pin on it. So now we have access to the X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to run that to our Z, or yaw, because the axis that we want to change with this timeline. And then I'm just going to run the open door into play, and I'm going to run the closed door into reverse. Okay, so let's see how that works. Let's see what happens here. So you can see the door opens, and then if we back away, the door is shutting. Okay, so you can see when we enter this overlap now, our door is going to open for us. When we leave it, it's going to close. Okay, now I did just notice one problem here. So I can't get through the door. So we're colliding with the door frame here. So let's just do one thing to fix that. So let's go into our blueprint, select your door frame, and then find the collision settings here, and it's set to block all dynamic. We can just change that to no collision, and then compile it, save it, give it a test, and we should be able to go right through now, which we can. So now we have a door that's going to open up for us. It's going to close when we go through it. So maybe this isn't for a door, maybe it's for something else in your level. When you overlap, something happens, right? Now I want to show you the flaw with this here. So you can clearly see my overlap box here, right? If I go in there, we can tell that I'm inside my overlap because the door is open, right? Now if I just exit out here, and if I restart right here, notice how the door is not opening? I'm inside my overlap and the door is not opening. So in order to get that door to open, I have to leave the overlap and come back in. Okay, and that's what I wanted to talk about in this example. I wanted to make sure I covered that. So we have everything with our door working what we wanted to do. So why isn't it working when we spawn in there? Well, this on begin overlap is only sensing when the player walks into it and then walks out of it. If the player is already inside the overlap when it starts, then this node isn't firing because you have to enter it for that to fire. But if you're already inside of it, then this node isn't going to pick you up there. So how can we fix that? Well, let's throw in, this is all the code we have in here. So I'm going to throw a event begin play node in here, and we're going to just do a check. And this, again, this was something that I wish I knew before when I started. And then when I did figure it out, I didn't know how it worked, why it worked the way it did, didn't know how to work it correctly. What I'm going to do is just right click, and I'm going to get overlapping actors. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to find anything that's overlapping anything in here, and it's going to make an array out of it. I never understood what arrays were when I first started, and we're not going to get into them too much here, but just know that it's going to just basically be a list. It could be multiple things. So if there's multiple things overlapping here, it's going to basically make a list with everything that's overlapping. Now, in this case, the only thing that can overlap is our player. So it's just going to be our player. Doesn't matter if it's just our player or if it's 100 other things. When you get overlapping actors, you're going to get any other actor that's overlapping any part of this actor. And it's going to make that into a list or an array. And it's going to give that out right here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to drag off the begin play, and we're going to do a for each loop. So a for each loop is made to be used with an array. It has an array as an input, so it has to take an array in. So we're going to pass that in. I'm going to do a separate video on arrays and for loops and stuff like that at a later point. But right now we're just going to do this. So we're going to get overlapping actors. So anybody overlapping, we're going to make a list. It's going to make an array of the actors that are overlapping. And what we're going to do is just do a check. So the same thing we just did here, we're checking to see if the actor has a tag of player. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to drag off and say has tag, and I'm going to put the tag of player in there because I want to check for the player. So then I'm going to come off the loop body and just do a branch, and then we'll connect our has tag into there. So if there is a player that's overlapping this door, I'm going to call my door open right here. Okay, so when this blueprint starts, this event begin play is going to fire. So it's going to fire this for each loop. And the for each loop is going to be looking for an array. And we're going to loop through that array and check if anybody has the tag of player. If anybody has the tag of player, then we're going to come out of true and we're going to open the door. Now, again, you don't have to check for a tag. If you don't want to use a tag and you want everybody to be able to open your door, you don't have to put the tag and the branch in here. You can just come off loop body and open door. It's going to fire that open door for everybody that's overlapping. In which case you could use a for each loop with break, and then the first time it found somebody overlapping, you can break the loop. But again, that's something else we're going to get into when we talk about arrays. But for now, if there's someone tagged as player that's overlapping when this starts, we're going to open the door. We're going to just put this code in. I don't think this is going to work, and I want it to not work so I can explain why here. So I'm going to just position myself right in the middle here. We're going to play, and you can see the door did not open. Okay, that door did not open. So why didn't it open? Again, this is something that I went through when I first started doing this stuff, and then I would be looking at my code saying there must be something wrong. The door's not opening. What's happening is the blueprint of the door is being loaded into the world slightly before the player gets loaded in. So when the blueprint gets loaded in, it's looping for overlapping actors. It's not finding any, and it's just firing out the completed pin. Just to make sure that is correct, what I want to do is just put a tiny delay in. We're just going to use the 0.2 that comes with. We're just going to throw that in right in the beginning, hit compile, and see what happens. And there is our door opening. So there's nothing wrong with that code. That code is just, it's firing before our player can get in the world and get set up here. So sometimes you don't even have to have a delay. Sometimes if you just do 0 on that, it will work. Other times, just a very small delay. So see, that delay set to 0 is enough that it will open the door right there. So if I start, that door opens now every time. And if we take that delay out, the door won't open. So we take that delay out, compile that, play, door doesn't open. The door is loading up before the player is. So when the door loads up, it's looking for overlapping actors. There is none when it's checking, and it's coming out of the completed tab. So this is something that I've experienced a few times while doing my game and working in Unreal. And you can put a little delay here. So just putting that delay in again with a time of 0, not even adding anything to it, but just a delay with the time of 0 will be enough for the door to open. Delays aren't always great to use. In this case, we're not even delaying. It's just running through this node is enough that the player is getting loaded in, and then it's finding it in here and calling door open. So there's a couple things that you want to watch out for, though, because the bigger your player character gets, the more stuff you have going on, the longer it might take for your player to load in versus this door. So you may want a little bit of a delay in here. So if you're going to add any kind of a little delay in here, what I would do is probably just turn this into its own event or make it into a function, whatever you want. I'll just make a custom event here, and I'll just call this check for overlap, and we'll plug that in. Okay, and then on our begin play, I can just do a set timer by function name. And then we can just give it this function name right here, check for overlap. So I can just copy that, paste that in here, and then I can just give this a little delay here. So we could just say like, 0.3 seconds or something. So then when the blueprint fires, it's going to wait 0.3 seconds. It's going to call this event, which will then check for the overlap. So this is a little bit better of a way to do it. You could probably put this in a function too. It doesn't really matter. But for demonstration purposes here, I did want to show that. And then let's just make sure it's still working. It is still working. So we're spawning inside of that overlap, and the door is opening for us. And it closes behind us. So everything seems like it's working good here. So we might keep building on this and maybe make a little room with some things that we can do and interact with. And then now that we have everything working here, we can comment our stuff. So we can go like this and say, we can call that our door open close. We can get this, call this our overlap maybe. We have our begin play. We can have everything nice and neat and commented in here. So we have our final door that opens up, closes behind us. And if we start inside the overlap, it's going to pick us up and open the door because it's now going to know that we're in here. So I would say that is our finished door from an overlap event. This could also be done from an interact event, which we might do at a later point where we can walk up and press an interact key and have the door open. For now, that is just an easy door open, door close. And I think that's going to be it for now. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.